to everyone who is here today. Ziggurat is an educational institute that provides Ziggurat is an educational institute that provides training in technology, engineering, and architecture, all with a sustainable bias. Today, as part of our MBA in Digital Transformation, we have a special guest speaker who will be talking about the status of digital age in South Africa. Thank you for being here today, Fortune. Welcome.
Thank you, Mona Lisa.
So, Fortune has 17 years of experience in organizational development, in strategy, organizational design, leadership, development, change management, and facilitation. Also, she boasts extensive experience in designing customized corporate learning and developing initiatives. So thank you for being here today again, Fortune, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mona Lisa, for having me. A very good, assuming different time zones, a very good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from. I will be spending the next half an hour talking to you about digital transformation from a people perspective. That is how I've prepared the talk for this session. So I am going to share my screen. Mona Lisa, I am going to take over the screen from you, and please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to start. I thought what we could do is start with this most basic statement that we use a lot when we talk about digital transformation, and really just engage in a conversation around what is digital transformation. I remember a few years ago, I was asked on a singularity panel, what would make a great chief digital officer? And I remember responding to a former colleague of mine and saying that we first have to understand what digital transformation is, because when we say we are getting in a chief digital officer, we are wanting them to preside over this process of taking a whole system through a digital transformation process. So if we then look at what that role entails so that we can try and demystify what this thing called digital transformation is, I said we have to start at what the value that is being generated is. So if we look at the value, any organization, I imagine that the people who are on this call are people who are employed. They work for a particular organization that generates some sort of value. So if you look at Ziggurat, for example, and we take it as an example of an organization that generates value, it generates the value of knowledge, right? And then if we look at how that value is then transformed into something with meaningful utility, it is transformed through its employees or through its community, like myself. And then it is consumed by people who are like yourselves on the webinar. So now I want you to take that and translate it into whatever value you produce at your organization. And then think that that value is generated by a particular group of people who are the employees using a particular process. And that value is consumed by a particular group of people who you would call consumers or customers. Now, where does digital transformation come into play? Digital transformation then comes into play in augmenting technology in either in the generation or in the consumption of that value. So if you then ask me again, what would make a good chief digital officer? I would say it's somebody, number one, who understands the value that is generated by your organization, who understands the process that it takes to generate that value, who understands the process that it takes to consume that value, so that if they are given this role, they are able to facilitate a process that can then get these two groups of people, the employees, to say, yes, I am willing to change the way that I generate value. I'm willing to change the way that I consume value. So I thought that it was important for us to first land that, because I think we loosely use the statement, oh no, we are going through a digital transformation, but what is it? And so that is why I'm spending some time really embedding this concept of what digital transformation is. So then if you go back and you look at literature from, either consulting houses or people who've written papers on this, you will find that it's very much similar. But I took McKinsey's one that says it's an effort to enable existing business models by integrating advanced technologies. So if you then think of yourself as a consumer, and you think, I think the most basic example that we can all relate to, depending on when you were born, the 2000s might not know that we actually used to go into a bank and write a deposit slip and put money in an account so that it can get to someone. But actually, that is the most basic thing that I can use as an example of us as consumers having had technology augmented into the way that we consume services. And so in terms of generating value, then banks had to think of different ways in which then they can train their staff to service us differently. So I think it's very important that we land on that. So now, given that context, what I want to talk to you about is then, how do you make change stick? So you've done an MBA in digital transformation at Ziggurat, and now you want to go and apply for the CDO role. How are you going to facilitate the transformation of this organization? I'm just going to check here and see, okay, I see Mona Lisa is encouraging you to send your questions there so that I'm able to see those questions. So that's perfect. So now I want to talk to you about what then do you actually look at for you to be able to say, I'll facilitate a process of digital transformation and ensure that people stay on this journey, because it can also be a bit sticky trying to get people to do things that they've done for many years. Because now I don't think that, when we talk digital transformation, we are talking digital transformation 1.0. Organizations have evolved. So now it's about, how do we elevate either the level of generation, make it more efficient, make it more innovative, stay ahead of the pack. And then in terms of the consumption, how do we ensure that we are always as a service provider of choice using technology? So what I want to talk to you about today is what we call in change management, the PPT framework. Because if you come to us and you say, we are going through a digital transformation, please help us, what we will look at are these three elements, which is the people, the process, technology. So what are those things and why do they matter to digital transformation? Number one, the people, these are the people who either they generate or they consume the value. I've spoken to you about that. The process. So when we talk about a process, we talk about a framework for delivering value. I think when I say process, people will often have the idea of a flow chart, but we actually have to know what it takes to transform this group of inputs into an output, which is the value. So a process then allows us to unpack that. So if we're going to augment technology into how we transform these inputs into a particular output of value, we have to actually understand the as is of how we do it. And I'll talk about why that is important. And then the technology. This is the thing that we want to sell to our people to say, actually, if you generate value this way, this is what it's going to do. If you consume value this way, this is what it's going to do. So the challenge that I've seen when I work with tech teams is that they get excited in the technology and they forget that a layman who's got no care in the world what this technology is, but really all they want to know is how is this technology going to enable my life or my human experience? So when we talk technology, I always encourage our tech teams to not go on about the what, but go on about the why. I always say it's not about how fancy the technology is. It's about how my human experience will be enabled. So if we're able to articulate that, then we are starting a narrative. And I'm going to talk about why it's important for all of these different areas to be handled with care for digital transformation journeys to work. So I've spoken about people, I've spoken about process, I've spoken about technology. What I want to do now is then unpack for you why these three areas are very important. So when we look at the people aspect, Mona Lisa started by saying the digital transformation landscape in South Africa. And, where you post your questions, I would love to hear what you will share based on this point that I'm going to mention now. But one of the key things of that people translate this thing called digital transformation is change. And here in South Africa, depending on which organization you're working for, when somebody says change, there is a little bit of trepidation that comes with it and anxiety. Because if I don't have enough information of what this change is about, oh no, we are implementing this new thing, what I might associate that with is that before I have enough information, that, oh, something is going to change. And as a result, my job might not be safe. So you can imagine how then people will engage with this process of change. And mind you, the higher powers, when they decided we're going through this digital transformation, they obviously engaged, with the likes of Fortune and said, when we look at our narrative, we must talk about how it's going to enable the human experience. But when people hear the word change, because that's why on that first point I said, what is critical in your communication is to manage the mental models on change. Because when you say to me now, draw a tree, I will draw a tree based on my perspective. So we will have as many trees from this webinar as the number of people on this webinar. So when you, as an organization, go to your people and you say, we're going to be going through this amazing transformation. I didn't hear amazing. Based on my own mental model of change, I might miss amazing. I might hear transformation, I might hear change. And I might also happen to be a high potential that you want to retain. But I also have the experience that the last time that I was at an organization and there was change, there was a loss of jobs. So the way that I might engage with the process might impact my own ability to leverage this transformation process, to leverage the power of this technology that you want to augment in the way that I generate value. So the first thing is to think critically about what is the narrative that we want to go to our people with, and what is the narrative of change in our organization, so that when we craft our narrative about this change that we are about to undergo as an organization, it's not one that will end up becoming a futile exercise, because we haven't managed the process of just creating a shared mental model about the problem that we are solving for with this digital transformation or with augmenting technology in the way that we work. And you can hear that I'm giving you alternatives of digital transformation because I think it's overused. So people end up, actually not knowing what are you talking about. So I think that is very important from my experience. The other is the people enablement. I'll speak to specifics on the next slide. So you have to know that I always say it's so interesting. When we go through this process, we always expect our leaders and our middle managers to manage and handle the process. I met with a client a few weeks ago and they asked me, what are the things that we need to look out for? And I said, leaders and middle managers, so senior leaders and middle managers, are often expected to manage this process. And no one actually takes the time to help them go through this process. Because it's also not easy. It's convincing people, it's selling to people this process, this idea that some of the times leaders and middle managers are also not so sure what it is that they're selling to their people. So how do we enable them? Because that in itself also gives or credentializes the process of digital transformation. If we enable our leaders and our middle managers to talk in a way that shows, that demonstrates that they're au fait with the process that the organization is going through and what problem this digital transformation or this technology, this big piece of technology that you've acquired and you want your organization to go through. It credentializes your process. It puts people at ease. And I think that contributes to that creation of an enabling environment. And then the people development skills, I'll speak to the specifics on the next slide. It's really giving people the skills and capabilities to work in what you're going to call the new normal. And I think it goes beyond me understanding the what of the system. So the way that I set up training teams when we are helping with a digital transformation is that we don't expect business analysts and the development teams who put together the system to come and for example, train a data's clerk on how they're going to use the system, because they're going to talk about the intricacies of the system. And the data's clerk is going to leave there feeling like, so I get to my desk, so how am I actually going to do this? So what we do is we match a super user who is a person who understands the as-is process intricately, but has also played around with the system, has also understood the to-be process that is going to be enabled by the system, so that the technology aspect can be given by the development team, by the business analyst, and the business analyst always has insight into the process. But this process person also has a bit of a relationship, and the people who are sitting in the session have a relationship that is different from a development person or a business analyst, because they feel like actually this person understands me. So there's a level of empathy that they associate with this person. So I think that is something, it's a novel idea that we have introduced, which I think, people might say, it could be a human capital intense, but I think when you look at the way that it can help make the change stick, it really helps. And I've spoken about managing the change, the anxiety, and the fatigue. And what we've also done, what we've started doing is doing specific user journeys. When organizations look at CX teams, customer experience teams will look at the customer journey from the perspective of the customer. So what we've started doing is looking at the change process from the perspective of the user, the system user, understand how the process that they've been using to generate this value. What is that process? What is the new process going to be? Where are they going to see changes? And how might we make sure that we communicate, we train them, we enable them? So I think that those are critical lessons that we've learned. I've spoken about the process, which is the understanding the is, and the to be that is going to be enabled. And then I've spoken about the why of the technology. You will see that I'm speaking a lot about the people aspect, because I feel that when we say we are going through a digital transformation, it's really about, at the end of it, what degree, what percentage adoption do we have, and who is adopting it? The people, whether from a consumer perspective or from an employee perspective. I think if time permits, what I would like to share is a case study that we did with a client last year. So when it comes to making the change stick, so you heard me talk about training, you heard me talk about communication, you heard me talk about change management. So from a change management perspective, it's really about how do we create the comfort that will decrease the anxiety. I was looking at a message here that will decrease the anxiety. So it's the creation of an environment where people feel their fears. I always say, when you're managing change, when you're managing any big transformation, what people don't want is to feel patronized. So people want the truth. You do have to be tactical in the way that you say the truth, because people want you to acknowledge that there are fears, that they're anxious, that they're concerned, because that is true, and that there's stress. And so when we say change management, it's very broad, because we can do this in many ways. And you hear examples of, what we did when we did the case study that I'm going to share with you. So when it comes to communication, I will never forget, I worked with a client who said, Fortune, somebody came into our branch today and asked for something that they saw on TV. It was being advertised, and they said, I would like to apply for this thing. But I had never heard of this thing. I didn't know about this thing. So I've often said to executives that when you're going through a huge transformation, whether it's implementing tech, whether it's a merger or an acquisition, it is important for leaders, senior leaders particularly, to know that leadership is a privilege. So since it is a privilege, you will get access to information that not everyone has. But you're also on LinkedIn. So, out of excitement, you'll hear something and then you'll go and post on LinkedIn. And somebody, they're sitting at their desk, they don't know about this thing, and they see somebody who they know liked this thing, and now all of a sudden, there's something that you've said on LinkedIn, and they didn't know about it. They're in the same organization as you. So it's simple things like that, because what they do is they break down the trust. So they impact the trust and they impact the psychological safety. I trusted you that we were together on this journey. How come you're now talking about this and I'm not aware of it? So those things. So when we talk about communication, we are always looking at how do we bring clarity? How do we reduce uncertainty? How do we reduce chaos? How do we reduce ambiguity? So whether if we're doing, suppose it's a procurement system that we're implementing, it means that we are touching many people, we are touching our employees, we are touching our suppliers, so our vendors, we're touching. So the communication that we have to do is a little bit elevated. And so the user-specific journeys that I referenced in the previous slide, it means that if I am a supplier, you then have to think of, for me to be paid on time, for example, what are the details that I'll need to get right now that you're on this new system, for example? So the issue with change and comms and training for this digital transformation is that the devil is in the detail. So you have to go there. So who are these specific users? And so if we are to then come up with personas and then understand each persona and how they're going to be impacted by this change, where we need to manage change, where we need to communicate, where we need to train. Training does not mean sitting in a room and delivering training. So this, because the training enables people, because it gives control back to individuals in a space of chaos. So I'll give you an example. We had a change process that we were doing. Part of the users who were going to be impacted were drivers. So getting drivers to sit in a room and tell them, this is the new system that you're going to be using to log your deliveries and your pickups. So what you can do, I'm trying to share some of the novel ideas, is you can do WhatsApp USSD enabled or generated training content that, you actually just push notifications to their phone. They're able, when they're, taking a recess on their long drive, press and it will show them that, this is the process that's changed. So when you get to your next delivery, this is how you're going to log your pickup. This is how you're going to log your delivery. That is training. We call that micro-learning. So you have to think of the specific users. We can't do a one-size-fits-all. It can't work. Otherwise, the change won't stick. I'm going to look at the chat.
No, we can have the Q&A session at the end. Don't worry.
Okay, so I can go.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what I want to share with you in closing is that sometimes it's not a brand new digital transformation journey. You could be sitting here, you're part of an organization, and I'm seeing this more often. You're part of an organization that is either merging or acquiring another organization. And in that acquisition or in that merger, you are required to either converge in some systems or maintain divergence in other systems. So where you're converging, what it means is that if company A was using procurement system A, and now, because now we are merging with company B, but company B has a more superior procurement system. So now what we want to do is take all our suppliers who were operating on this procurement system A to B. Take it that this particular group of people is going through a brand new transformation. The suppliers, the people who are using the system, are you going through a brand new digital transformation? So now you have to understand, is there anything that is going to change from a B perspective, meaning that there's a different change journey that these people in company B are going to go through? There's different comms, there's different training. These guys, on the other hand, are being introduced to a brand new system. So for them to continue to be efficient, maybe what you want to do before you go live on system B is to take some people from this group, send them to this company so that they can actually shadow. That's a different way of looking at how you can train and enable people. But what I'm wanting to point out here is that you can definitely see Group A and Group B, they're coming together. What you might think is that, oh no, the people at Group B actually don't need any comms, any training because they've been using the system. But remember, A and B merged. So A and B actually as an organization now has probably different details. Now they have to communicate different details to their suppliers, different invoicing processes. So I'm saying digital transformation can't always stay here, guys. Digital transformation has to come here. Think value. Think of yourself. Here in South Africa, we have an amazing app called Checkers 6060. So Checkers, it's a retail group. It's a ShopRite retail group. And I hope they don't mind me mentioning them. I'm just mentioning them because I'm such a happy consumer. But they have an app that they introduced a few years ago, and you buy your groceries on the app and they deliver in 60 seconds. I mean, I remember when I heard about this, I was like, and people were raving about it, but it's so intuitive, So even the way that it's almost like because it's intuitive, you can actually train yourself to use the app, if that makes sense. But even then, it was so easy to actually use the app. And I think it was done so beautifully, so intuitively that people were training each other on how to use the app. And people are actually selling the app to each other. So, and that they had to understand what would a person like a Fortune, they probably had a persona for a person like me who probably didn't take up that service as quickly as I did. So they probably had a user journey for that person and what it would take to make it easy for them. So that's what I wanted to share with you, that if you're going through a merger or you're going through an acquisition, know that there will be a need to actually do user-specific journeys and then determine what will be required from a communication perspective, from a change management perspective, from a training perspective, and to know that training is not a one size fits all. Otherwise, your change will not stick. So I hope that from today, the next time you hear someone talking about digital transformation, ask them to come down. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Talk to me about the value generation. Talk to me about how this technology will be augmented into the way that I generate it, into the way that I consume it, because that is digital transformation. Mona Lisa, that's me.
Yeah.
1735. Yeah.
Perfectly. Oh, thank you very much for your insights, Fortune. It's very valuable, and I was thinking, and a lot of questions that I have. I think that it's the best in master classes, because when you have more and more and more questions, I think that this is, for me, this is the best, because um it's sticky on my head, and I have like thinking and thinking. It's very cool. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I would like to ask Elena to give us a little speech about our MBA, just 5 minutes, and then we will have the Q&A session. Okay, just I will share my screen, right, Elena?
Yes, please, Mona Lisa.
Okay, okay, go
Okay.
ahead. Mhm.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elena, and I'm career development and admission consultant in Zigurat. My role involves guiding candidates through our program, helping them to understand its requirements and ensure that the program aligns also with their professional and personal goals. So my colleagues and I are here to support you in every step of the way. So I encourage you to reach out to us for further assistance regarding the program. Now, let me provide you with an overview of our MBA and digital transformation program. Our program offers an innovative approach to leveraging technology for business improvements. It's designed for professionals from diverse sectors, and it equips you with the skills to implement and master digital transformation challenges through the management, leadership, and execution perspectives. And Ziggurat, we employ a project-based approach, allowing you to either bring an existing business case or you can develop a new business model with the guidance of our international digital experts. Spanning 1 year and starting in November 2024, the program is divided into 3 main blocks. First of all, you will enhance your business acumen with a broader perspective by insights into various business functions like finances, marketing, operations, strategy. How does every department work? What are the decision-making processes in each? And then solid understanding of emerging technologies and digital strategies, and of course, their impact on the business models. This will help you to lead digital initiatives and drive innovation in the rapidly evolving digital ecosystem. So basically all the necessary knowledge to understand the interplay between the technology and the business goals. And this program also is aimed to help you to develop skills such as strategic thinking, to make an informed business decisions aligning with the company's objectives, and advanced leadership abilities, essential for effectively managing teams and projects. The methodology of our program is time flexible and interactive. And upon successful completion, you will earn an MBA degree from Zigurat Institute of Technology and also University of Barcelona. Additionally, our collaborations with an industry leaders like AWS and IBM provides an access to their educational platforms, enhancing your learning experience. And we also partners with an organization such as BCN Innovation District, 22 Ed Network, and CBCAT, offering real-world cases and insights to enrich your learning journey. So please feel free to contact us for more information or to begin your application process. We are here to assist you in achieving your career goals.
Yes, just get in touch if you want to know more about this MBA. So thank you, Elena. I will
You're
stop to
welcome.
share. Oh, if I know how to do it. Oh, just okay. Let's go for the Q&A. I will discover. So, we have a question here from Shoaib Nati. Thank you. Many CEOs do not see immediate ROI when proposing investment in BA, process engineering research to map ASEI and then to be process. Oh, sorry, I don't know how to do how to speak that, but it becomes too much of a long-winded process, and then fatigue sets in. What is your suggestion for immediate results? Fortune?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great question because that's the fight that we have all the time. So, the tech teams that I work with, I always insist that we are at the beginning of the process. Don't go and talk about the amazing tech and then start mapping how this tech is going to work. And then now, when you want to go flying with the tech, you're like, oh no, but we actually don't know how the process works. So I always say that have the change team right at the beginning. Number one, it helps create leadership alignment. Number two, it helps make the narrative for the transformation coherent, and it helps create almost like a hymn sheet for the leadership. People don't resist because they don't want and they just tired. People resist because they actually don't know what they're contributing to. But if people know exactly what they're contributing to, where their contribution is going to lead, it becomes easier. It's an easier sell. And so because what usually happens is you have a BA team that says to people, come, let's map your processes. And then this BA team doesn't communicate with the change team. 6 months later, the change team comes. The change team now wants to produce training content. Now they want to go to the same group of people and say that, oh no, please come help us map your processes. But if we do it together, the BA and the change team right at the beginning, we don't have to do it many times in the journey, which is what usually happens. So I think that it's also in the alignment of the multidisciplinary team that is usually involved in digital transformation. Does that answer you?
Yes, we also have here a comment from Bilal, which talks organization culture. Culture is also important. Companies with poor culture don't manage change well. Yeah, do you want to comment or?
Certainly, I think that organizations that have a culture that has demonstrated previously that they don't manage change well, the word change sends people looking for other jobs, unfortunately. So I always say to leaders, if you don't manage that well, even those people who you thought were promising talent, you might lose them in that process. So I think organizations have to be quite deliberate about how they manage change.
Right. We have the last questions from Thaisa. Great masterclass. And what I see that in excess of meetings and bureaucracy many times goes against common and proper training. How we can address this?
So I think it goes back to what I was saying. If we are not clear on the leadership alignment, if we are not aligned on what is the problem that we are solving for by implementing this system or going through this transformation, if that is not clear at a very senior level, because I always say the leaders at the highest level have to play their politics well. And I know that you're thinking, Fortune, why are you encouraging us to do politics? No, I'm not. Human systems are driven by power and politics. So if there is that clarity and that alignment at the top, people below that level are not going to be fighting and having meetings upon meetings to agree on the one thing that you needed to agree on in meeting number one. So that is very important. So I always say, if you're a senior leader, you need to play the politics so that you don't exhaust your people now running around like headless chickens, trying to figure out what exactly is happening here. So do your job.
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's kind of pleasure to have you and listen to you. I hope to keep in touch. Thank you
Sure.
very much, which are here assisting us today. And that's it. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, everybody.
Bye bye.